Fake dispatch radio code bullshit.
The first of these is package available with the pages of airport data and the first of these is the package this is the basic are involved. So you put that into the next password called VirtualBox Guest Edition ISR, which will include all the forms of the patch. The next one to install VirtualBox Guest Edition ISO, which will improve the performance of our virtual machine, not least by permitting it to run full screen
recent kernel, recent drivers, so you should be able to run that on any computer without any problem. So to conclude on Cosmic and Pop OS, I love what they've done. It is a fantastic first draft of a desktop. It is still a first draft. The applications are bare bones, the settings are very bare bones, and you can clearly see that some stuff is not animated as it should be, some stuff isn't as smooth as it should be. There are some performance problems when opening and closing apps. Not sure if it's
Renaming and preparation complete.
add stuff to them. In terms of other apps, you have a basic media player, which does what you expect, and then it's
talking about this. The Powerball and Mega Millions are trying to put me in jail. I can hit at least 4 numbers every week. I used to be a truck driver. I lived on the road, spent days away from home, and could barely watch my kids grow up. I played every week. I would pick random numbers and pray that God would let me win at least once, just like most people do.
Database sorting. The entire audio workflow is finished.
I almost tore up all my tickets until I saw a video that changed everything. Most people still don't know this, but in 2025, no one needs to rely on luck or those tricks to win several times in a row anymore. Sounds crazy, I know, but give me 15 seconds to explain. After analyzing the biggest lottery winners in history, Dr. Leonard Voss, a former NASA developer, discovered a simple loophole they've been trying to keep hidden for years. A loophole so powerful, when you use it, the chances of not hitting at least 4 numbers are basically 0. You only need 3 clicks to predict the numbers. Any lazy American who uses it can hit 4, 5, or even 6 numbers every week. I'll leave the step-by-step video from Dr. Voss right here on the button, and if you're smart, you'll watch it and secure your retirement today. I admit I was skeptical at first, but I decided to try it, and guess what? Today, I can give my family what they truly deserve and know that no matter what happens, they'll be taken care of. The craziest part, so many people are starting to win that they're trying to take the video down. But I got access again, and it's still 100% free. If the button still shows up for you, it's your lucky day, because that video went offline like 9 times last week. Watch the free video now and see for yourself how this pattern works. No magic, no complicated formulas, just applied math exposing a flaw no one expected to find.
We salute their service, our fighter pilots, and we salute the workers behind these glasses.
If you eat butter daily, this is what happens to your eyes. Take a look at these 2 retina scans. They both look sharp, focused, and healthy, but only one of them belongs to someone young. The other? It's the eye of a 74-year-old man who nearly lost his vision for good. His simple fix? Doing one tiny thing each night before bed. So if you wear glasses or contacts and are struggling with blurry vision, floaters, or living with cataracts, macular degeneration, glaucoma, or any other vision impairments, then I've got something important to share with you. So about a year ago, my wife came home from her routine eye exam, and I could tell something was off. She wasn't smiling. She didn't say much. Then she sat down at the kitchen table and said something I'll never forget. The doctor said my vision is declining fast. There's no cure. He said we can try drops or even monthly injections. That's really all you can do. I couldn't believe it because we had dreams of traveling, seeing the northern lights in Iceland, walking through the Louvre, taking our grandkids to the Grand Canyon, and all of that to be taken away within a year because the doctor said that's how long it can be before she might need help just walking around the house and might end up in the nursing home. I was devastated, and after more testing, we finally got an answer. Her eyes were clogged. Tiny blood vessels in the back of her eyes were twisted and blocked, literally suffocating her vision. The oxygen and nutrients that kept her sight strong were cut off. No wonder she was bumping into furniture, asking me to read the fine print. seeing hazy shapes instead of sharp faces, and the scariest part, the doctor said if you ignore worsening vision, even just a little dark spots for too long, the damage might become irreversible. Now I'm sharing this story not to scare you, but to share what we've discovered as the way to fix this without pills or anything unnatural, because what we discovered right after that exam changed everything for us. We came across a documentary about a canceled optometrist whose research was quietly removed from public archives. He had spent decades studying how vision truly declines, and what he found shocked the entire medical community. He found that nearly every case of deteriorating vision had one single root cause, and it's not aging, screen time, or even genetics, but instead a clogged microvessels in the retina that block the blood flow in the eyes. But his research led to a powerful discovery, a simple red root method that he claims flushes out the buildup and helps the eyes get the nourishment they've been starved of for years. You can do it tonight, no matter how old you are, no matter if you've had vision problems for 3 months or 30 years. And that's exactly what happened with my wife, Laurel. After she started following the red root method, she noticed her eyes felt less strained, and the dark spots slowly began to fade. Before long, she was reading fine print again and even felt confident driving at night, something she hadn't done in years. I was amazed. So I saved the exact video that showed us how to do this red root method from home. And now,
System
you can watch
initialized.
it too, for free, by tapping the Watch Now button below. In it, the doctor explains how this simple nightly habit supports healthy blood flow to the eyes. And it doesn't involve pills, drops, or risky procedures, just a natural method anyone can follow safely from home. Since then, I've shared it with friends and family, and many have noticed their eyesight feeling clearer and stronger too. That's why I truly believe everyone should watch this video before it's taken down again. The eye care industry makes billions from temporary fixes, so they don't want this getting out. If your vision has been getting worse, please don't ignore it. Tap the Watch Now button below to see how this red root method works, and how you can easily start using it
Probably know
tonight.
Vistaprint for business cards, but did you know we print everything you need to get your brand in front of your fans? We print banners and signs that help your business
Hello
stand
everyone,
out.
and
We
welcome
print
back to
postcards and
another
flyers
video
that
from
get
our
people
channel.
talking. And we
In
print
this
must-have
video,
merch
we'll take
like
a
tote
gentle
bags,
look at the
t-shirts, and
American
water
stars
bottles.
we've
Whether you
recently
want a
lost,
few or a
along
few
with
thousand,
other
we
beloved
print on
figures from
everything
around
so
the
that customers
world who
can
have
go from
touched our
noticing your
hearts.
brand
Before we
to
begin,
right now.
we'd truly appreciate it if you could show your support by giving this video a like. It helps us continue sharing these heartfelt stories. Thank you for being here. Now let's begin. It is with deep sorrow that we remember Michael Reagan, the eldest son of President Ronald Reagan and a passionate defender of conservative values, who passed away at the age of 80. His death was confirmed by the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute, which described him as a steadfast guardian of his father's legacy. For decades, Michael lived not in the shadow of his famous father, but in devoted service to the ideals Ronald Reagan stood for: freedom, personal responsibility, and unwavering patriotism. Behind the public persona of a talk radio firebrand and Newsmax commentator was a man shaped by a deeply personal journey. Born in 1945 to Irene Flogger and adopted just hours after birth by Ronald Reagan and actress Jane Wyman, Michael often spoke of what it meant to grow up twice adopted, emotionally and spiritually, in a world that never quite let him forget his extraordinary family name. He later poured those reflections into his heartfelt books, On the Outside Looking In and Twice Adopted, offering readers an intimate look into a life lived between love and longing. Following in his parents' footsteps, Michael pursued acting before finding his true voice behind the microphone. Through The Michael Reagan Show and his appearances on Newsmax, he became one of America's most recognizable conservative voices, fiercely defending his father's record and speaking to millions who saw in him the continuation of a political and moral legacy. Yet Michael's heart reached far beyond politics. He devoted years to charitable work, raising funds through powerboat racing and serving as chair of the John Douglas French Alzheimer's Foundation, a cause made painfully personal when his father lost his long battle with the disease in 2004. Through the Reagan Legacy Foundation, Michael ensured that his father's vision would never fade. Michael Reagan leaves behind 2 children from his marriage to Colleen, and a nation that knew him as a voice of conviction, loyalty, and devotion. Though he is gone, his life remains a living bridge between history and memory. A son who spent a lifetime honoring a father, and a man who never stopped standing for what he believed. Rest in peace, Michael Reagan. Your watch has ended, but your legacy lives on.
Without any problem. So to conclude on Cosmic and Pop OS, I love what they've done.
Drinking more water with cinnamon eliminates that blue parasite from the pancreas, regulates blood sugar levels, and reverses type 2 diabetes.
And you can clearly see that
This is the last time I'm sharing this here.
As it should be.
Just the 15 seconds made of trick forces your body to urinate out this disgusting creature and lower AOC in just a few hours. 9 out of 10 Americans have type 2 diabetes and less than 1% know it. The real culprit of type 2 isn't sugar or carbs, but a 1.2-inch parasite that lives attached to the pancreas,
Scanner Gen
sucking
offline.
out your beta cells and insulin. This parasite causes fatigue, excessive hunger, frequent bathroom trips, and tingling in your
Scanner.
hands and feet.
System initialized.
A study conducted in 2024 by a Japanese university shows that this parasite is very weak, and the trick done with a handful of cinnamon can eliminate it in an impressive 3 minutes.
You can clearly see that
After a few hours, you'll notice a huge relief in your A1C levels, and after a few days, they'll never go above 4. Percent again, I'm going to show you exactly how to prepare this recipe in just 30 seconds. Just click the button below to watch, but make sure to watch it while it's still available. This recipe
And make sure you are in compliance with your company's retention policies before you enter a program like this. At some point, you most certainly are going to run into a situation eventually where you might have to clear log files, especially if your storage volume starts to become full. And there's our video. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Linux Crash Course series. I know I had a ton of fun producing it for you guys. And if you like this video, then be sure to click the like button to let YouTube know.
Let me get your take.
Drinking warm water before bed improves eyesight almost overnight. Thousands of people are already doing this every night as they sleep by adding one unusual ingredient to a glass of warm water before bed. If you're long or short-sighted, struggling with floaters, or living with cataracts, macular degeneration, or glaucoma, then pay close attention. Because a recent study out of a top British university suggests that vision problems actually have very little to do with our eyes at all. They found that the real root cause appears to be a buildup of microscopic clogs, blocking the blood vessels which lead into the eyes, over time starving them of oxygen and essential nutrients, resulting in poor eyesight, annoying floaters, and all the other vision problems which affect so many people. But most importantly, these same researchers revealed a simple 10-second water trick you can begin to use today, which they claim quickly unclogs and clears out these vessels, restoring proper blood flow to the eyes once and for all. It's been an exciting breakthrough, with thousands of men and women now reporting of suddenly being able to ditch these glasses, eliminate floaters, and enjoy crystal clear 20/20 vision after struggling for years. Just tap watch now below to skip straight to a free special video and see this 10-second daily ritual that can start taking effect within the first few days. Remember, this has nothing to do with expensive medications, special glasses, or risky surgery. This is something you can easily do from home. Randall, a 58-year-old from New York, says he found this method just in time, as they were about to take away his driver's license because his night vision was so poor. And Tina, a 54-year-old grandma from Delaware, said her own optometrist started using this method himself after seeing how fast she'd improved. This is your chance to join thousands of people who'd almost given up hope, but are now suddenly able to clearly see the world around them again, reading their favorite books, enjoying their favorite views, and taking in the faces of their loved ones. But without addressing this root cause, you might never be free from the nagging worries of future health problems, the straining and squinting to get things in focus, and the fogged-up glasses everywhere you go. So tap the blue Watch Now button below to learn more about this discovery and see exactly how to start using this method at home right now.
In the House that have taken matters into their own hands with these discharge petitions to hope that this issue gets addressed in some kind of meaningful way so that it does not continue being a major topic.
Where we find SVN mode, it tells us down here it's to do with
virtualization. I'm going to change that to enable.
It is truly heartbreaking.
Previously, go across to
Brett Hannah Schuford, the gifted Broadway actor known for his powerful performances in Wicked, The Little Mermaid, and numerous stage productions, has passed away at the age of 46. His death on January 3rd has sent waves of sorrow through the theater community and beyond, silencing a voice that brought warmth, beauty, and humanity to every role he touched. Behind the curtain and beyond the spotlight, Brett was deeply cherished as a husband, father, and friend. His husband, Stephen Hannah Schuford, announced the news in a moving message, sharing that Brett passed peacefully, surrounded by family, after a courageous battle with hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis and T-cell lymphoma, rare and devastating illnesses that attacked his immune system. In his final moments, Brett was wrapped in love, leaving behind a family whose hearts were forever changed by his light. Born on May 20th, 1979, in Beaumont, Texas, Brett discovered his love for performing as a child with the Gingerbread Company, appearing in community theater, commercials, and independent films. That early passion carried him all the way to Broadway, where he made his debut in Beauty and the Beast before joining Disney's The Little Mermaid, the production that would lead him to meet the love of his life, Stephen. Brett went on to appear in some of Broadway's most beloved shows, including Wicked, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, A Wonderful Life, The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, Amazing Grace, and Cirque du Soleil, Paramour. He also toured nationally in South Pacific and Dreamgirls, bringing his talent to audiences across the country. Brett appeared in The Wolf of Wall Street, Only Murders in the Building, FBI, Most Wanted, The Good Fight, Law & Order, SVU, All My Children, and Guiding Light, each role reflecting his quiet strength and emotional depth. Brett Hannah Schuford is survived by his beloved husband Stephen and their son Maverick. Though his time was far too short, his legacy lives on in the stages he graced, the characters he brought to life, and the family he loved so fiercely. Rest in peace, Brett. Your light will never fade.
So to conclude on Cosmic and Pop OS, I love what they've done.
Dick Van Dyke is a name synonymous with joy, elegance, and timeless charm.
When I started doing this unusual warm water ritual to shrink my swollen prostate, my friends laughed at me, but when I told them how I could finally sleep through the night without running to the bathroom, they began asking how I did it. You've probably heard that as you get older, waking up 2, 3, even 5 times a night to pee is a normal part of aging. But what if I told you that's not true at all? What if I told you there's a simple way to help restore your bladder control and shrink your prostate naturally, and it doesn't involve pills, invasive procedures, or expensive doctor visits? Sounds too good to be true, right? That's what I thought too. Until I ran into my old friend Jim at the grocery store. I didn't even recognize him at first. He looked at least 10 years younger, standing tall, full of energy, and completely relaxed. I couldn't believe it because last time I saw him, he looked exhausted and he could barely sit through lunch without rushing to the bathroom. So I asked him what changed, and that's when he told me about a short video he found online featuring a world-renowned researcher from Japan who made a shocking discovery while studying soldiers on long military missions. He found that most prostate problems have nothing to do with age or genetics, but instead a toxic buildup that infiltrates prostate tissue, causing it to swell like a wet sponge and squeeze your bladder until you can't hold it anymore. And if you do nothing about it, this buildup gets worse every single day, until one day your bladder becomes so inflamed that you could completely lose control in public or in front of people you love. But here's the good news. The researcher reveals a simple warm water ritual you can do each night before bed that helps flush out this toxic buildup and allows your prostate to shrink back down to its normal size so you can finally sleep through the night and feel comfortable again. In fact, thousands of men who once relied on saw palmetto and painful procedures are now waking up refreshed, sleeping soundly, and even regaining their confidence and drive, no matter their age or current condition. So I encourage you to stop what you're doing right now and tap the Watch Now button below to watch a free informative video that shows exactly how this simple ritual works and how you can use it at home tonight. And remember, this has nothing to do with meds, invasive procedures, or expensive treatments. It's something simple, natural, and safe that any man can do from home. Imagine sleeping through the entire night without once getting up. Imagine never worrying about being too far from a bathroom or having to excuse yourself 5 times during dinner with friends. Over 11,000 men have already tried it, and many were surprised to find they could sleep all night, feel more energized in the morning, and finally get back the confidence they thought was gone for good. Tap the Watch Now button below to watch the free video now and discover how it works.
What about saluting our fighter pilots this Christmas? Want to see the gear that the fighter pilots are wearing?
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's hard for us to imagine how radical these words from America's Declaration of Independence were in 1776. Throughout history, people have believed not in equality, but in its opposite, inequality. Some people were regarded as superiors and others as inferiors. That, most people suppose, is just the way things are. Speaking for the American people, Thomas Jefferson and our country's other founders proposed a nueces to build a republic on the principles of equality and as equals, people have the right to lead their own lives without being constantly told what to do by their governments. The principal role of governments, rather, is to secure unalienable rights, such as the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But what did the Founding Fathers mean by liberty? As we approach the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence and our nation's founding, we should reflect on that question. A synonym for liberty is freedom. Philosophers sometimes distinguish 2 types of freedom, namely, freedom from and freedom for. Mere freedom from, the freedom to do what one wants, whatever one wants, is what our founders would have rejected as mere license, not true liberty. True liberty is freedom for people to pursue honorable and righteous ends. Here's an example. Our Constitution, in its First Amendment, recognizes the right peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. As a negative liberty, it is freedom from the government's breaking up a peaceful demonstration or punishing people for participating in it. As a positive liberty, it is the freedom to advocate on behalf of a just and righteous cause. Of course, people sometimes abuse their liberties by promoting unjust and unrighteous causes, and such abuses must be tolerated precisely because we wisely decline to entrust government officials with the power to decide whether criticism of their policies is warranted. Still, the reason for recognizing the freedom to protest is precisely to enable people to advocate for just and righteous causes. It's clear then that our founders, claiming and protecting liberty, were not indifferent to the distinction between good and bad, right and wrong, virtue and vice, justice and injustice. In distinguishing liberty from license, they counted on our moral and religious convictions, shaped by our families, religious communities, and other institutions of civil society, to restrain us from immorality and injustice. As John Adams observed, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. Benjamin Franklin made a similar argument. Only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become corrupt, they have more need of masters.
Location, what's your 10-20?
And throughout American history, reformers like Abraham Lincoln have appealed to the Declaration of Independence in dismantling, as we have done, albeit slowly and with great struggle, the systems of racial oppression that contradicted the principles of equality and liberty expressed in that document. But beginning in the 1960s, the concept of liberty underwent a change as many Americans lost their grip on the distinction between liberty and license. Mere freedom from came to be viewed by the so-called new generation as true liberty. They forgot about what freedom is for. A cultural revolution advanced the thesis that true liberty amounts to setting aside allegedly oppressive moral norms in order to indulge one's desires, emotions, feelings, and passions. If it feels good, do it, the mantra went. And many people, alas, embraced it. Licentiousness masquerading as liberty is a stark departure from what the authors of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution understood to be the guiding principles of our republic. The founders believed that our God-given rights were not meant to facilitate our passions, but rather were intended to allow us to direct our actions toward what is true, right, virtuous. When properly understood, America's promise of liberty, the concept that our founders embraced, even if they did not always live up to it, is demanding, bold, and courageous.
Scanner Gen offline.
It calls us to become our best possible selves, people capable and worthy of self-government. But when distorted on behalf of destructive cultural fads, our nation's promise of life, liberty, and happiness is no longer a profound universal truth, but a set of platitudes, a few sweet-sounding words that can justify virtually anything. I'm Robert George, McCormick Professor of Jurisprudence and Director of the James Madison Program at Princeton University for Prager University. Thank you for watching this video. To keep PragerU videos free, please consider making a tax-deductible donation.
That have arrived here at the athletic complex, and it seems likely that they won't be able to go until it's deemed safe, at least for the surrounding Brown University area.
His journey from a small-town boy in the American Midwest to one of the most beloved entertainers in history is a story of perseverance, warmth, and extraordinary talent. Born in 1925, Van Dyke's early life was shaped by the hardships of the Great Depression and the uncertainties of a rapidly changing world. Raised in Illinois in a modest family, he learned early the value of humility, kindness, and hard work. Even in those early years, his natural humor and infectious optimism began to shine through, offering a glimpse of the performer he would become. A turning point in Van Dyke's life came when he discovered his love for radio, comedy, and musical performance. After serving in the U.S. Army Air Forces during World War II, he struggled to find steady work as an entertainer, taking small jobs wherever he could. He performed on local radio, worked in nightclubs, and endured years of rejection. Yet through every setback, Van Dyke never lost faith in his dream. His perseverance eventually paid off when he landed roles in television and theater, slowly building a reputation for his unique blend of physical comedy, warmth, and effortless charm. His breakthrough came on Broadway in Bye Bye Birdie, where his role as Albert Peterson earned him a Tony Award and brought him national attention. That success opened the door to Hollywood, leading to the creation of The Dick Van Dyke Show. Airing from 1961 to 1966, the series became one of the most beloved sitcoms of all time. Van Dyke's portrayal of Rob Petrie, a comedy writer balancing work and family life, resonated deeply with audiences. The show's smart writing, gentle humor, and emotional honesty made it groundbreaking, and Van Dyke's performance at its center gave it a heart that viewers instantly connected with. Beyond television, Van Dyke's career flourished in film. His roles in classics such as Mary Poppins and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang showcased his rare ability to combine acting, singing, and dancing with pure joy. His performance as Bert in Mary Poppins became iconic, charming generations of children and adults alike. With his light-footed dance moves and bright smile, Van Dyke seemed to embody the very spirit of happiness, turning every scene into a celebration of imagination and wonder. The success of his work brought numerous awards, including multiple Emmy Awards, a Tony Award, and later a Screen Actors Guild Lifetime Achievement Award.
They killed her brother. They shot her dog. and they took her hostage for 400 days and terrifying nights. They raped her. They put guns to her head. They starved her. These are the stories of Israeli women attacked by Hamas. If you are supporting Hamas and radicalized Palestinians, this is what you are supporting. Choose freedom, not terror.
Go ahead, close it. With Gusto, payroll and compliance are already done. Those extra 2 days every month since you switched. Unlimited payroll runs with no extra charge. Being able to pay your team instantly, or the same day. Your taxes filed automatically. Music to your ears. Make time for what matters. Choose a future with Gusto. Get started for free at gusto.com.
Yet despite the fame, Van Dyke remained deeply grounded. He has often spoken about how grateful he is to have brought happiness into people's lives. Like Carol Burnett, he cherished the letters and stories from fans who grew up watching him, who laughed with their families, and who found comfort in his work during difficult times. But Van Dyke's story is not without struggle. Behind the scenes, he battled alcoholism for many years, a challenge that threatened both his health and his career. With courage and honesty, he confronted his addiction and chose recovery, later speaking openly about his journey in hopes of helping others. His willingness to face his weaknesses with humility only deepened the public's respect for him, turning his life into a testament to resilience and self-forgiveness. Van Dyke's influence extends far beyond entertainment. He has shown that kindness, laughter, and authenticity are powerful forces. Even as he aged, his spirit never dimmed. In his 90s, he continued to dance, act, and make public appearances, inspiring the world with his vitality and love for life. He has often said that staying curious, grateful, and kind is the secret to longevity, both in career and in life. In recognition of his contributions, Van Dyke received the Kennedy Center Honors, a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and was honored as a Disney legend. Each award reflects not just his talent, but the deep emotional connection he formed with generations of audiences. Like Carol Burnett, he became more than a performer. He became part of the American family. In recent years, Van Dyke has continued to appear in films and television, reminding the world that passion does not fade with age. His joyful presence in projects like Mary Poppins Returns and his continued public appearances serve as living proof that creativity has no expiration date. Dick Van Dyke's legacy is not just about entertainment. It is about the power of joy. He taught us that laughter can heal, that kindness can endure, and that staying young at heart is one of life's greatest gifts. For millions around the world, Dick Van Dyke will always be a symbol of warmth, grace, and the simple magic of making people smile. Thank you, Dick Van Dyke, for the laughter, the music, the dancing, and the happiness you have given us. Your legacy will continue to live on in the hearts of those who grew up watching you and in the generations still discovering your magic today.
Of subsidies expiring or not is not.
We have lost a giant of faith and music. Richard Smallwood, the legendary gospel composer, singer, and worship architect, whose songs transformed how the world experiences praise. He passed away at the age of 77, leaving behind a sacred legacy that will echo through churches, choirs, and hearts for generations to come. For more than 4 decades, Smallwood's music did far more than fill sanctuaries. It shaped the very sound of modern worship. Revered as both a musical scholar and a spiritual guide, he created a rare bridge between classical composition, traditional gospel, and Pentecostal praise. His songs were not just melodies. They were prayers, sermons, and moments of divine encounters set to music. Born in Atlanta and raised in Washington, D.C., Richard began playing the piano at just 5 years old. His extraordinary gift was nurtured at Howard University, where his brilliance and discipline laid the foundation for a career that would change gospel music forever. From that sacred beginning came the Richard Smallwood Singers, a choir that would introduce timeless anthems to the world. Songs like Total Praise, I Love the Lord, Trust Me, and Angels Watching Over Me became more than choir favorites. They became spiritual lifelines for millions. These compositions traveled across denominations, cultures, and generations, becoming woven into the fabric of Black church worship and beyond. Smallwood received 8 Grammy nominations along with multiple Dove and Stellar Awards. Yet those closest to him knew the honors were never his focus. His true calling was ministry. As Bishop William Murphy once said, the Spirit of God rested on his gift, turning excellence into anointing. Even in his later years, Richard's influence never faded. A powerful 75th birthday tribute celebrated his living legacy, reminding the world that his music was already immortal. Richard Smallwood did not merely write songs. He wrote the soundtrack of faith. And as Total Praise continues to rise from pulpits and pews around the globe, his voice still leads us in worship. Thank you, Richard Smallwood, for the music, the ministry, and the moments that lifted heaven closer to earth. Your legacy will never fade.
Drinking warm water before bed improves eyesight almost overnight. Apparently, thousands of people are already doing this every night as they sleep by adding one unusual ingredient to a glass of warm water before bed. If you're long or short-sighted, struggling with floaters, or living with cataracts, macular degeneration, or glaucoma, then pay close attention, because a recent study out of a top British university suggests that vision problems actually have very little to do with our eyes at all. They found that the quality of someone's vision was directly linked to how clogged the blood vessels leading to their eyes were, meaning if your vision has gotten worse, it's because the blood flow to your eyes has gotten worse too, over time starving them of oxygen and essential nutrients, resulting in poor eyesight, annoying floaters, and all the other vision problems which affect so many people. And most importantly, these same researchers revealed a simple 10-second water trick you can begin to use tonight, which they claim quickly unclogs and clears out these vessels, restoring proper blood flow to the eyes once and for all. It's been an exciting breakthrough, with thousands of men and women now reporting suddenly being able to ditch their glasses, eliminate floaters, and enjoy crystal clear 20/20 vision after struggling for years. Just tap watch now below to skip straight to a free special video and see this 10-second daily ritual that can start taking effect within the first few days. Remember, this has nothing to do with expensive medications, special glasses, or risky surgeries. This is something you can easily do from home. Randall, a 58-year-old from New York, says he found this method just in time, as they were about to take away his driver's license because his night vision was so poor. And Tina, a 54-year-old grandma from Delaware, said her own optometrist started using this method himself after seeing how fast she'd improved. This is your chance to join thousands of people who'd almost given up hope, but are now rediscovering the world around them in crisp and vibrant detail, reading books, menus, and phone screens with ease, enjoying their favorite TV shows, and driving with confidence again. But without addressing this root cause, you might never be free from the nagging worms of future health problems, the straining and squinting to get things in focus, and the fogged-up glasses everywhere you go, all while paying out a fortune on glasses and contacts and expensive treatments. So tap the blue Watch Now button below to learn more about this discovery and see exactly how to start using this method at home.
It is still a first draft. The applications are bare bones, the settings are very bare bones, and you can clearly see that some stuff is not animated as it should be, some stuff isn't as smooth as it should be. There are some performance problems when opening and closing apps.
And here we are back on the desktop with a welcome wizard, and there's various things that
at Ancestry, we believe every question about the past is a spark.
One is that if you have an NVIDIA graphics card,
and when curiosity strikes about the everyday lives of your family, we're here with answers only your ancestors can provide. How is your family woven into 250 years of U.S. history? Find out now, before our sale ends.
Brigitte Bardot, the eternal symbol of French cinema, beauty, and rebellion, has left this world at the age of 91, closing one of the most luminous chapters in the history of global film. She passed away peacefully at her home in southern France on December 28th, surrounded by the quiet life she chose after walking away from fame at the height of her glory. To the world, Bardot was more than a movie star.
At the time, I didn't know how much.
She was a cultural revolution. In the 1950s and 1960s, her golden hair, fearless sensuality, and effortless elegance reshaped how women were seen on screen.
I said to them,
through films such as And God Created Woman, Le Mépris, Viva Maria, and Une Parisienne, she became the face of a new era. Bold, liberated, and unapologetically alive. Nearly 50 films and dozens of songs later, she stood not just as France's greatest screen icon, but as a legend of the 20th century. Yet behind the beauty and the fame lived a woman who longed for freedom. At just 40 years old, Bardot shocked the world by walking away from cinema, choosing peace over stardom. She once said that leaving the spotlight saved her life, that the weight of fame felt like being hunted. While the world mourned her absence on screen, Bardot found her true calling. In the second half of her life, she devoted herself entirely to animals. Through the Brigitte Bardot Foundation, founded in 1986, she fought tirelessly against cruelty, funding wildlife hospitals and shelters across the globe. She sold her jewelry, her art, even pieces of her past to protect the voiceless. In animals and nature, she finally found the peace humanity had denied her. Brigitte Bardot lived through 4 marriages and spent her final years quietly with her husband, Bernard Dormal, surrounded by horses, donkeys, and the creatures she loved most.
At the time, I didn't know how much.
She was beauty.
I do now.
She was defiance. She was compassion. And now,
at the time, I
she
didn't know how
is
much
immortal.
I do now.
Farewell, Brigitte Bardot. A woman who changed cinema, challenged society, and gave her heart to those who could never speak. You will never be forgotten.
So you should be able to run that on any computer without...
Hayden Thompson, a quiet giant of American rockabilly and one of the original voices of Sun Records, stands as a living bridge between the birth of rock and roll and the generations who still feel its fire. Born on March 5th, 1938, in Boonville, Mississippi, Thompson's journey was never about fame. It was about sound, soul, and staying true to the music that changed the world. While history crowned Elvis Presley, Hayden Thompson was one of the rare artists who stood beside that revolution at its very beginning. As a teenage prodigy who taught himself guitar at 5 and sang on the radio by 9, Hayden grew up with music flowing through every breath. From gospel to country to rhythm and blues, his ears were shaped by the raw power of Memphis radio. And that fire would carry him straight into the heart of Sun Studios. In 1956, Sam Phillips finally captured Thompson's voice, backed by a band that included Jerry Lee Lewis. The result, Love My Baby, became one of the most electrifying recordings of early rockabilly. A cult classic that would one day be revered by collectors and historians alike. Though commercial success slipped through his fingers, the music itself never lost its power. Hayden's life was one of resilience. He toured, recorded, and endured rejection, working nightclubs, driving taxis, and even limousines, yet never letting go of the sound that defined him. When Europe and Japan rediscovered rockabilly in the 1980s, they also rediscovered Hayden Thompson. He returned to the stage, recording new albums, touring the world, and finally receiving the love that had always been waiting for him. From Boonville, Mississippi Flash to standing tall and learning the game, Thompson proved that time only deepens true artistry. Hayden Thompson did not chase the spotlight. He kept the flame alive, and in doing so, he became immortal. Thank you, Hayden, for the rhythm, the rebellion, and the honest music that will forever echo through rock and roll history. Gil Gerard, the beloved star who carried audiences into the future as Buck Rogers, has completed his final journey, passing away at the age of 82 after a brief but fierce battle with cancer. His death has left a quiet ache across generations of fans who grew up watching him soar through space embodying courage, humor, and hope in one of television's most iconic science fiction roles. To millions, Gil will forever be Captain Gene Buck, the 20th century astronaut who awoke 500 years into the future, ready to face new worlds with bravery and wit. When Buck Rogers in the 25th Century premiered in 1979, it became an instant cultural phenomenon, and Gil's warm, charismatic performance turned a pulp fiction hero into a symbol of optimism for a new era.
I love what they've done. It is a fantastic first.
How long it takes a beginner like my dad to go from beer belly to get ripped again with Tai Chi.
How old is your father?
He is 56.
Oh, perfect. By the end of November, you won't even recognize him.
But what if he hasn't worked out in years?
That's even better. Tai Chi was built for men 40 plus.
Isn't the gym better after 40?
The gym breaks you. Tai Chi will make you feel better and lose weight faster than in your 20s.
Does he need any equipment?
No, his body is enough. Just do it for 9 minutes a day and see your body feel younger.
So what's the first step?
Click the link, get the app, and start
The
tomorrow.
applications are bare bones, the settings are very bare bones, and you can clearly see that some stuff is not animated as it should be, some stuff isn't as smooth as it should be. There are some performance problems when opening and closing apps. Not sure
And I want to install Windows 11 Pro, and I also want to make sure we're offline when we do this, so I can set up a virtual account. And to do that, I'll go down here to VirtualBox and go to disconnect the network adapter.
Behind the screen, however, lived a man deeply devoted to love and life. His wife, Janet, shared that Gil passed peacefully after only days of knowing something was wrong. A sudden and heartbreaking farewell to a man who treasured every moment. In a final message written before his passing, Gil reflected on a life filled with adventure, gratitude, and love, calling his journey deeply satisfying and thanking the universe for the people who made it so. Born in Little Rock, Arkansas, Gil worked tirelessly through commercials and television bit parts before his star finally rose. After Buck Rogers, he continued to appear in shows like Sidekicks, Days of Our Lives, Nightingales, and films such as The Nice Guys, always bringing sincerity and quiet strength to his work. Yet it was his heart that truly defined him. For 18 years, he shared a life with Janet in North Georgia, a love rooted in companionship, laughter, and deep devotion. In his final words, Gil urged us all to chase what thrills us and to love fiercely. Gil Gerard didn't just play a hero, he lived like one. And now, somewhere in the cosmos he loved so much, his journey continues. Farewell, Buck Rogers. Thank you for the wonder, the warmth, and the timeless adventure. Anthony Geary, the legendary heart of General Hospital and the man who brought Luke Spencer to life, has taken his final bow at the age of 78. His passing in Amsterdam, following complications from surgery, marks the end of an era in daytime television and leaves a deep silence where one of its brightest voices once stood. To millions around the world, Anthony was not just an actor. He was Luke. From the moment he stepped onto the screen in 1978, he transformed a soap opera role into something mythic, emotional, and unforgettable. His on-screen romance with Jeannie Francis's Laura became one of the most iconic love stories in television history. The 1981 wedding of Luke and Laura drew 30 million viewers, turning a daytime drama into a national event and sealing Geary's place in pop culture history. Yet behind the fame lived a deeply thoughtful and private man. Anthony spent his later years quietly in Amsterdam with his beloved husband, Claudio Gama, far from the glare of Hollywood. Their life together was rooted in simplicity, love, and peace, a gentle contrast to the passionate storms he brought to the screen.
Location,
Over a career spanning more than 4 decades, Geary earned 8 Daytime Emmy Awards, a record that reflected not just popularity, but the depth and honesty of his craft. Luke Spencer was never meant to be a hero, and Anthony embraced every shade of that complexity, the charm, the darkness, the redemption, giving audiences a character who felt profoundly human. From early television appearances to a lifetime of stage and screen work, Anthony Geary remained devoted to truth in performance. He once said Luke lived in all shades of gray, and so did life itself. Anthony Geary didn't just entertain us, he made us feel. And that is the rarest gift of all. Farewell, Tony. Thank you for the love, the brilliance, and the legacy that will forever live on. It is truly heartbreaking. Rob Reiner, one of Hollywood's greatest filmmakers and the creative force behind some of the most beloved movies in modern history, has passed away at the age of 78. His death, alongside that of his beloved wife Michelle Singer, in a shocking and tragic act of violence, has left the film world stunned and grieving the loss of a storyteller who shaped generations of laughter, love, and memory. Rob Reiner was more than a director. He was a guardian of cinema's soul. From the moment he emerged from the shadow of his legendary father, Carl Reiner, he forged a voice that was uniquely his own. With This Is Spinal Tap, he redefined comedy. With Stand By Me, he gave us childhood in all its fragile wonder. With The Princess Bride, he created a fairy tale that would live forever. And with When Harry Met Sally, he captured love in all its awkward, funny, and painfully human beauty. Behind the camera, Rob was guided by empathy. He believed stories should feel real, that laughter and heartbreak were two sides of the same truth. Across decades, his films earned 11 Academy Award nominations and countless devoted fans who grew up quoting his lines and finding pieces of themselves in his characters. Beyond Hollywood, Rob lived with passion and conviction. A tireless advocate for civil rights and social justice, he used his voice to fight for equality, believing art and activism belong together. His love story with Michelle Singer, which began on the set of When Harry Met Sally, was one of deep devotion. Together, they built a family and a life rooted in creativity, love, and shared values. The tragedy of their passing only deepens the heartbreak. Two lives, so intertwined, taken far too soon. Yet even in sorrow, their story remains one of love, legacy, and farewell, Rob Reiner. Thank you for the magic, the laughter, and the unforgettable stories that will live on forever. You changed cinema, and you changed us.
Full screen and allowing a shared.
Drinking warm water of cinnamon before bed eliminates that blue parasite from the pancreas, regulates blood sugar levels, and reverses type 2 diabetes. This is the last time I'm sharing this here. Just the 15-second made of trick forces your body to urinate out this disgusting creature and lower AOC in just a few hours. 9 out of 10 Americans have type 2 diabetes, and less than 1%
In 1965, a few scientists have been allowed to join with peers from MIT and General Electric on a project called Multiplexed Information and Computing Service, or MULTIX. The idea was to create a short-term utility for sharing time with the system.
Frequent bathroom trips and tingling in your hands and feet. The good news is that a study conducted in 2024 by a Japanese university shows that this parasite is very weak, and the trick done with a handful of cinnamon can eliminate it in an impressive 3 minutes. After a few hours, you'll notice a huge relief in your A1C levels, and after a few days, they'll never go above 4%. Again, I'm going to show you exactly how to prepare this recipe in just 30 seconds. Just click the button below to watch, but make sure to watch it while it's still available. This recipe is irritating a lot of people who make money from type 2 diabetes, and they're trying to take down the video at all costs.
Doing the deal through Indonesia and having their Indian general manager sign all the paperwork.
We make it through Jakarta with signatures coming from our Indian general manager, because we will never know about this project.
there's this
Drinking
conversation.
warm water with cinnamon before bed eliminates that blue parasite from the pancreas, regulates blood sugar levels.
So we go back
and reverses type 2. This is the last time I'm sharing this here.
And we tell them,
just a 15-second native trick forces you to intimidate out this disgusting creature in lower AOE in just a few hours.
9 out of 10 Americans have type 2 and less than 1% know it. The real culprit of type 2 isn't sugar or carbs, but a 1.2 inches parasite that lives attached to the pancreas. Sucking out your beta cells and insulin, this parasite causes fatigue, excess hunger, frequent bathroom trips, and tingling in your hands and feet. The good news is that a study conducted in 2024 by a Japanese university shows that this parasite is very weak, and the trick done with a handful of cinnamon can
eliminated in an impressive 3 minutes. After a few hours, you'll notice a huge relief in your A1C levels.
They'll never go above 4% again. I'm going to show you exactly how to prepare this recipe in just 30 seconds. Just click the button below to watch, but make sure to watch it while it's still available. This recipe is irritating a lot of people who make from type 2 diabetes, and they're trying to take down the video at all costs.
Which has a large 37-meter antenna in it. So we do a number of things that...
Abraham Quintanilla Jr., the father, producer, and architect behind the rise of Selena, the queen of Tejano music, has passed away at the age of 86, closing one of the most complicated and influential chapters in Latin music history. His death marks the end of a life lived between ambition, sacrifice, and an unshakable belief in the power of family. Abraham's dream began long before Selena ever sang a note. As a young musician in the 1950s and 60s, he struggled to find success in a world that rejected Mexican-American artists. That dream never died. It was reborn in his children. When he recognized something extraordinary in his daughter, he built Selena y los Dinos from the ground up, teaching discipline, pushing relentlessly, and turning a small family band into a Grammy-winning phenomenon. Under his guidance, Selena rose from local dance halls in Texas to international stardom. Songs like Beady Beady Bom Bom and albums like Selena Live carried her voice across borders, making her a symbol of pride for millions. Yet Abraham's role was never simple. To some fans, he was fiercely protective. To others, he controlled. He walked a fine line between love and fear, afraid that losing control might mean losing the teams he had spent a lifetime building. That tension reached its peak when Selena married guitarist Chris Perez against his wishes. A painful moment that forced Abraham to finally accept that even stars must follow their own hearts. When Selena was tragically murdered in 1995 at just 23, Abraham lost not only his daughter, but the future he had envisioned. In the years that followed, he devoted himself to preserving her music, defending her legacy, and keeping her voice alive for generations who never had the chance to hear her live. Through triumph and controversy, Abraham Quintanilla Jr. remained what he had always been, a father driven by devotion, haunted by loss, and defined by a dream that changed music forever. Farewell, Abraham. You gave the world Selena, and through her, you gave millions a voice, a culture, and a legacy that will never fade. Jack Nicholson, a name that streaks through film history like lightning across a dark sky. To speak it is to summon a gallery of unforgettable faces, each etched into the collective imagination, each pulsing with a power that could never be contained by the screen. He could freeze your blood with a smile in The Shining, expose aching vulnerability in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and turn anarchy into irresistible charisma as the Joker in Batman. In As Good as It Gets, he stripped away bitterness to uncover a wounded heart, proving that even the most hardened souls can learn to love. Nicholson was never just a performer delivering dialogue. He was a force of pure metamorphosis, vanishing so completely into each role that what remained felt startlingly real. Those eyes, restless, electric, impossible to ignore, held genius and instability in the same glance. That crooked grin could lure you in or cut you down, shifting from danger to charm in the blink of an eye. His graveled voice, worn by time and brilliance, left behind lines that became part of our cultural DNA. Every character seemed to rise from a deep, untamed place within him. Wild, yet controlled. Exaggerated, yet deeply human. For more than 50 years, Nicholson didn't simply appear in films. He reshaped what acting itself could be. He became a benchmark for intensity, humor, and authenticity, teaching generations how to go too far, dare too much, and still make it feel natural. Yet even legends must one day step away from the spotlight. Now, at 88, Jack Nicholson no longer stands beneath the relentless glare of cameras. The stages are silent, the scripts untouched. The man who once commanded every room now moves through a quiet world of reflection and solitude. Rumors drift through the air. Talk of retreat, of fading memory, of time slowly claiming the mind that once held countless lives. There is a bitter poetry. The actor who portrayed madness so vividly now confronting the shadows of the world that once watched him dominate the screen, now watches the hush settle around him and quietly asks, what becomes of those who once seemed invincible when everything finally grows still?
I swear by God, Tahiti shampoo will make you grow new hair in 2 weeks. If no new hair grows, we will compensate you $20,000. Rosemary extract is known as a DHT killer. If you use it for 2 weeks, it can quickly reverse hair loss. After 2 weeks, your hair follicles will be activated, new hair will grow, your hair will grow longer and thicker, and hair loss will stop. You can almost regain the thick hair you had when you were 20 years old. If you want to try it for yourself, please click the shopping link on the lower left. Limited time offer, buy 2, get 1 free while stocks last. Do not use this rosemary shampoo unless you have very little hair and are experiencing excessive hair loss. If you use it, your hair will grow very quickly, exceeding normal levels, and you will have long, thick hair. Your hair will be completely repaired. And we warn you that once you start using it, you will not want to stop unless you want to have thicker hair. Here's the link below on the left. Limited time offer, buy 2, get 1 free. There's not much inventory, so act fast.
Management features if you need that, but I think most people will just use another text editor if they need to edit files.
When curiosity strikes about the everyday lives of your family, we're here with answers only your ancestors can provide. See their stories before our sale ends.
Behind the walls of his Los Angeles home, the legend exists not in tragedy, but in transformation. The man who once sculpted chaos into art now faces the most universal truth, that even the brightest stars must eventually soften their glow. Yet in that gentle dimming there is something sacred, the courage to accept vulnerability as the final, most honest performance. To remember Jack Nicholson is not simply to remember an actor, but to honor the restless human spirit that makes him feel alive. If his work ever frightened you, moved you, made you laugh or think, take a moment now, offer a thought, a quiet tribute, a breath of thanks. In doing so, you honor not just a man, but the very pulse of film itself. Still, to truly grasp Nicholson's genius, one must look back to the storm from which he wrote. His story did not begin in glamour, but in secrecy. Born on April 22, 1937, in Neptune, New Jersey, he entered a family bound by affection and hidden truths. He was raised believing his grandparents were his parents, and that his real mother was his sister. A carefully constructed illusion meant to shield the family from scandal. June Nicholson, a gifted young dancer of just 17, was not ready to raise a child. His father's identity remained an unspoken mystery, so the grandparents took him in, and he called them Mom and Dad, never knowing the truth until much later in life. When June left to pursue her own dreams, he felt only the sting of abandonment, unaware that he was mourning his own mother. When the truth finally surfaced in adulthood, it shattered the foundation of who he thought he was. Perhaps from that fracture, from love and
Scanner-gen engaged.
from belonging
System
to
initialized.
his art found its depth. A boy uncertain of his own origins became a man capable of becoming anyone. From confusion grew empathy, from loss, creation. And through every performance, whether wild or tender, Jack Nicholson forged the greatest illusion of all. That truth itself could be acted and believed. That absence became a silent wound, carved into him before he even had the words to name it.
Scanner-gen offline.
Not hatred, but confusion. Not anger, but longing. A hollow space where truth should have lived. For decades, Nicholson laughed, worked, drank, fought, dreamed, carrying within him a foundation built on illusion. He became a man of immense charisma, quick wit, and volcanic emotion. But beneath the surface ran an undercurrent of uncertainty. A child's ache for identity, masked by a legend's swagger. When the truth of his family was finally revealed to him in adulthood, it was less revelation than earthquake. Proof that even those who tower above the world can be built on fault lines invisible to all but themselves. This was the crucible from which Jack Nicholson emerged. A boy born into shadows, who turned pain into performance, who transmuted confusion into characters that bled with complexity. His genius was not accidental. It was born of fracture, of absence, of a need to wear masks because the first mask had been forced upon him at birth. And perhaps that is why his art endures. Because in every grin, in every mad glimmer of his eyes, in every line delivered with brutal honesty, there is the echo of a boy who learned early that the truth can be unbearable, but performance can make it beautiful. Then, in 1974, when Jack was already celebrated as one of Hollywood's brightest stars, a reporter from Time magazine unearthed the truth. The woman he thought was his sister was his mother, and the parents he adored were in fact his grandparents. It was more than a revelation. It was a collapse, a knife to the soul of a man who had lived nearly 4 decades inside a story written by others. Nicholson himself would later admit it was a hell of a dramatic event. A shock so deep that he described it as a blade across the soul that never truly healed. Imagine the cruelty of learning that the very foundation of your life had been built on silence and shadows. Many men would have been broken, lost, or embittered by such a discovery. But Jack transformed the wound into fire. The rage, the sorrow, the unspoken ache became the fuel for performances that shook the world. In the madness of The Shining, in the defiance of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, in the twisted charm of Batman, you could feel that inner storm. A man forever haunted by the child inside him, still whispering, "Who am I? Where do I come from?" That unanswered question gave his eyes their fire, their sorrow, their unforgettable depth. Yet what makes Nicholson's story even more extraordinary is not only the pain, but the resilience that rose out of it. He refused to be defined by abandonment. He refused to collapse under secrecy. Instead, he turned confusion into creativity, grief into greatness, wounds into art that will endure for centuries. Later in life, when asked about the discovery, Jack did not lash out with bitterness. He spoke with weary steel, admitting the pain,
Drinking warm water before bed improves eyesight almost overnight. Thousands of people are already doing this every night as they sleep, by adding one unusual ingredient to a glass of warm water before bed. If you're long or short-sighted, struggling with floaters, or living with cataracts, macular degeneration, or glaucoma, then pay close attention. Because a recent study out of a top British university suggests that vision problems actually have very little to do with our eyes at all. They found that the quality of someone's vision was directly linked to how clogged the blood vessels leading to their eyes were. Meaning if your vision...
But also the resilience. It was a pretty dramatic event, but it wasn't what I'd call traumatizing. I was already psychologically formed. In those words lies the paradox of Nicholson's childhood: scar and strength, fracture and flame. His early life was cruelly marked by absence and deception. But out of that very darkness came the brilliance that would forever change cinema. Without that wound, perhaps the world would never have known the Jack Nicholson who could take pain and transform it into unforgettable art. What could drive a boy scarred by secrets and abandonment to chase a dream so uncertain, so merciless as Hollywood? At just 17 in 1954, Jack Nicholson left behind the fractured identity of his New Jersey childhood and stepped onto California soil. A young man carrying wounds no one could see and ambitions few dared to believe in. His first job was not on a set, nor under the glow of a spotlight, but as an office boy in Hanna-Barbera. He ran errands and delivered scripts, watching the magic of animation unfold while quietly promising himself that one day he would belong on the other side of the door. He later admitted with a wry smile, "I always knew I was meant for more than carrying coffee." But in those years, he had nothing but hunger and grit. By the age of 21 in 1958, he finally broke into film with his first starring role in Crybaby Killer. It was a low-budget B-movie, barely remembered by history.
Location:
a crime thriller dismissed as forgettable. Yet to Nicholson, it was monumental. It was proof that he had set foot on the stage of destiny. Looking back, he once laughed and called it a terrible little movie. But beneath the humor was the release of a young man who had finally pierced the wall that separated dream from reality. The decade that followed was anything but easy. Jack's career stalled. For survival, he turned to writing, even penning the psychedelic script for The Trip in 1967, while working tirelessly with Roger Corman on low-budget productions. These films, mocked by critics, were crucibles where he forged his craft. In cluttered backlots and smoky sets, he learned to improvise, to pull intensity out of thin air, to fight with nothing but raw will. He later confessed, "I never had it easy in this town, but I never stopped showing up." A testament to the stubborn resilience that separated him from those who gave up. And then came 1969. At 32, in the countercultural masterpiece Easy Rider, Nicholson erupted onto the screen with a performance so unpredictable, so alive, that audiences and critics were transfixed. Overnight, the boy who once carried scripts for others became the man every studio wanted. His grin and raw energy etched themselves into the consciousness of a generation yearning for freedom and rebellion. That role was not just a career milestone. It was ignition. The moment his years of hunger and hardship burst into flame. The pain of his youth, never knowing his true identity, feeling abandoned, had been transformed into a power that audiences could feel in every glance and every line. Hollywood at last could no longer look away. His early years in California were not gilded with privilege, but paved with struggle, loneliness, and a refusal to surrender. And it was precisely that unyielding fire, born of pain, that carried Jack Nicholson from B-movies to the threshold of legend. From the moment Nicholson stormed into Hollywood's consciousness with Easy Rider, his sense seemed unstoppable. Yet behind the thunder of applause, a quieter, more fragile story was unfolding. At just 33 in 1970, he delivered a searing performance in 5 easy pieces, earning his first Academy Award nomination for Best Actor, and announcing himself as one of the most formidable voices of his generation. By 36, he repeated the feat with The Last Detail in 1973. In that film, he embodied the raw, restless spirit of America in an era defined by discontent. And then came 1975, the year that would carve his name forever into the marble of cinema history. At 38, Nicholson's portrayal of Randall McMurphy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest did more than win him his first Oscar. It became a mirror of rebellion itself. Critics hailed it as electrifying. Audiences wept, and for Nicholson, it was a vindication. As he once admitted, every actor is haunted by something, and if you're lucky, you can turn that into something people can feel. The world saw triumph. He knew it was pain transfigured into art. The triumphs continued, each greater than the last. In 1980, under the unrelenting vision of Stanley Kubrick, Nicholson descended into the madness of The Shining.
They killed her brother.
Location 10-20.
And they took her hostage for 400 days and terrifying nights. They raped her. They put guns to her head. They starved her. These are the stories of Israeli women attacked by Hamas. If you are supporting Hamas and radicalized Palestinians, this is what you are supporting. Choose freedom, not terror.
Gabrielle turned her passion into a thriving business with Hostinger. Now it's your turn to take your idea online. Create and launch your website in minutes with Hostinger AI and get everything you need to grow all in one place. From domains and hosting to emails and 24/7 support.
Hostinger's customer service is the best in the industry, and I can say that because I've worked with everyone in the industry.
Build the website, publish the portfolio, launch the store. Just go for it. Go to Hostinger to turn one day into day one.
Now, when we've done that, we'll get to
Here's Johnny. A line improvised in a frenzy of brilliance became etched into the DNA of pop culture. A performance so magnetic that it redefined the very language of horror. The world saw terror. Nicholson confessed later that he had drawn from shadows already inside me. By the late 1980s, he was no longer simply an actor. He was an institution. In 1989's Batman, his Joker was wicked, operatic, unforgettable, and the $60 million payday that followed made industry history. At 52, Nicholson had not only conquered Hollywood, he had bent it to his will. And still, he was far from finished. In 1997, at the age of 60, he delivered one of his most delicate and human performances in As Good as It Gets, a role that won him his third Oscar. 12 nominations, 3 golden victories, the kind of record that secured his place among the immortals. His acceptance speech that night shimmered with humor and gratitude. I'm honored to be on any list with you, Bobby, Dusty, and my old bike pal Fonda. But beneath the wit lay a glimpse of something more fragile. Friends whispered of his loneliness, of a man adored by millions who sometimes sat restless in silence when the curtain fell. This was the cruel paradox of Jack Nicholson's glory, that the same intensity which electrified audiences and birthed unforgettable characters also carved fissures inside him. To the world, he was the storm, the genius, the legend, the force of nature who turned suffering into silence. But in the quiet, he was still Jack, haunted, searching, carrying the hollow carved in childhood. The more dazzling the triumphs, the deeper the shadows seemed to fall. 12 Oscar nominations, 3 golden victories, a pantheon of roles that changed cinema forever. And yet, the unshakable truth remains. Even the brightest light casts the darkest shadow. If Jack Nicholson's career was a ladder of gold climbing toward immortality, his personal life was a staircase that kept collapsing beneath him. The very first step on that staircase was his marriage to Sandra Knight, the only woman he ever officially called his wife. The only moment he came close to the kind of ordinary happiness most men take for granted. In 1962, at just 25, Nicholson was not yet a household name. But in Night, he found what looked like an anchor, a fellow performer whose beauty, grace, and warmth seemed to offer him the stability he had long been denied in his fractured childhood. A year later, in 1963, their daughter Jennifer was born, and for a fleeting instant, it appeared that Jack had outrun the shadows of abandonment, building for himself the intact family he never truly had as a boy. He would later admit in a rare interview, "For a while, I thought I'd finally broken the chain of my own past. I thought I could hold on to it. But the very fire that made him unstoppable in Hollywood proved uncontainable at home.
You've got to present a bigger
Nicholson's
vision,
hunger for
and
art,
I think
his restless
the
ambition,
process is gonna come
and his
up with
refusal to
partners.
be tethered by routine began to erode the marriage almost as soon as it had taken root. Sandra later described their years together as turbulent, shaped by Jack's unwillingness to be tied down, even as she acknowledged the tenderness they shared in those early struggles.
Do you think that there could actually
By
be an 11th hour deal
1968,
here?
only 6 years after they said their vows, the marriage quietly dissolved. There was no tabloid scandal, no courtroom drama, only the silent ache of a young family torn apart before it had the chance to truly begin. For Jennifer, barely 5 years old, it meant growing up without the steady presence of her father. For Jack, it was the closing of a door he would never again reopen. He confided years later that walking away left him a man with more questions than answers, a rare glimpse into the regret he usually kept hidden behind charm and wit. Friends and colleagues often said Nicholson carried an unspoken awareness of this failure, though he seldom addressed it directly. His screen roles, rebels, outsiders, men who refused to be contained, seemed to mirror the cruel symmetry of his private life. The very qualities that made him a legend on screen cost him his chance at being a husband and full-time father. He went on to live a life surrounded by beauty, fame, and passion, but never again stood at an altar. Never again whispered forever to anyone. Decades later, with candor streaked of bravado, he confessed, "I sometimes wonder if I threw away my one real shot at family." That loss, the one stable home he might have had, became a tragedy that followed him into his later years. Even as the world celebrated him as a giant of cinema, Jack himself knew that he had once tasted the simplicity of ordinary love, only to let it slip through his fingers. It was not a scandal, not a headline, but for Nicholson, it was the wound that never truly healed. A silent reminder that even legends can lose the very things they need most. If the collapse of Jack Nicholson's marriage to Sandra Knight left him haunted by the loss of a family he might have built, the years that followed carved an even deeper wound, one not tied to romance, but to fatherhood itself. In 1970, Nicholson blazed across the screen in 5 easy pieces, a performance that earned him his second Academy Award nomination and confirmed him as one of the defining voices of his generation. Among his co-stars was Susan Anspach, an actress of striking presence and fierce independence. Their brief off-screen connection might have seemed fleeting, but it gave rise to a story far more consequential than any film. The birth of a son, Caleb. For most men, the arrival of a child is a moment that reshapes the heart, a chance to heal old wounds through a new life. For Nicholson, it became a fracture that echoed the very scars of his own youth. When Caleb was born later that year, Jack did not step forward to embrace him. Whether out of fear, uncertainty, or the consuming blaze of a career suddenly soaring into the stratosphere, he kept his distance.
Gusto is the best choice for small business payroll. It's fast. It's trusted. It's a great value. And when it comes to running your business, it's the easiest choice you can make. Get started for free at gusto.com.
Being a pro doesn't start under the lights. It starts in the kitchen, where factory chefs move like point guards, reading and timing every pass. And dietitians dial in balance the way coaches fine-tune plays. Because what you put in is what you get out. And what you eat, that's where it starts. Factor, eat like a pro.
Publicly, he did not acknowledge the child. Privately, the silence grew into a shadow that lingered for decades. Susan shouldered the role of parent alone, later speaking of Nicholson's unwillingness to claim responsibility. To the outside world, it seemed a cruel twist of fate. The actor who so vividly embodied rebels and outsiders on screen had turned away from the most profound and ordinary role of all, that of a father. The irony was piercing. Nicholson himself had grown up in the fog of family secrets. believing his mother was his sister and his grandparents were his parents.
He
needed firsthand the ache of confusion, the ache of absence, and yet history repeated itself. In leaving Caleb unacknowledged, he passed on the very uncertainty that had haunted him. Those close to Nicholson whispered that guilt weighed on him more heavily than he ever admitted. In interviews, he sometimes skirted the subject, but on rare occasions, a flicker of honesty escaped. "There are things I wish I had done differently," he confessed. 7 words that carried the weight of decades. Over time, Nicholson did provide support, and Caleb's place in his life found a kind of recognition. Yet the early absence remained like an invisible scar, one that no gesture could fully erase. To critics and admirers, the paradox was inescapable. On screen, Jack Nicholson embodied truth with such force that audiences felt their souls shaken. Off screen, he struggled with truths too intimate to face. The boy he had not claimed from the beginning became a quiet reminder that even as Nicholson conquered Hollywood, part of his own humanity remained unfinished. It was not a scandal splashed across headlines, but a tragedy written in silence. A silence that once born could never be completely undone. If Jack Nicholson's early years as a father left behind a wound of absence, his relationship with Michelle Phillips in the mid-1970s opened yet another chapter of heartbreak. One that was quieter, more private, but no less devastating. Phillips, the ethereal voice of the mamas and the papas, was herself a figure touched by both glamour and turbulence. When she and Nicholson came together, it seemed like a pairing of 2 restless spirits drawn to the same flame of artistry and rebellion. Yet their brief union, rather than becoming a lasting bond, would be remembered for a sorrow too heavy to carry into words. The loss of a child before life had truly begun. In those years, Nicholson was climbing rapidly toward the summit of Hollywood. His career was blazing with Oscar nominations and roles that reshaped cinema. But behind the curtain, his private world absorbed a pain few ever saw. Pregnancy and its sudden tragic end was never paraded before the press, never sculpted into headlines the way so many of his later relationships would be. It was instead a grief endured in silence. For Michelle, it was the anguish of carrying life and then losing it. For Nicholson, it was another fracture in the fragile dream of family that seemed always to elude him. Friends who knew them spoke of the sorrow that hovered between Jack and Michelle afterward. An unspoken sadness that could not be healed by fame, money, or applause. Nicholson rarely addressed the loss directly. Yet those who observed him noted how it weighed upon him in ways he did not often reveal. For a man already haunted by the absences of his childhood and the distance from his son Caleb, the loss of this unborn child deepened the paradox of his life. A legend celebrated for bringing him to life, yet unable to protect the life that might have bound him closer to love. It was not a scandal splashed across tabloids, not a chapter that Hollywood gossips feasted upon, but a private sorrow, a wound carried in silence. In many ways, it revealed the most human side of Nicholson. The man who could turn pain into electrifying art was, in his private world, subject to the same tragedies that touch ordinary lives. The fleeting love with Michelle Phillips left no altar, no long-term union, but it left behind something more enduring, the shadow of a loss that time could never fully erase. If Jack Nicholson's romances were storms, then Angelica Houston was the hurricane that consumed his horizon for nearly 2 decades. Fierce, beautiful, and impossible to forget. From 1973 until 1990, she was not just a lover, but his equal.
With this.
A woman of elegance and
style. Create plugins How long it takes a beginner like my dad to go from rebelling to
everything you need to take your brain for this perfect by the end of the
But what if it doesn't work out?
T-shirts, whether you want a few or a few thousand, we print on everything. So customers can go from noticing your brain to on
He will make you feel better and lose weight faster than in your 20s.
Does he need any equipment?
No, his body is enough. Just do it for 9 minutes a day and see your body feel younger.
So what's the first step?
Click the link, get the app, and start tomorrow.
Are you there? For the home.
The daughter of Hollywood legend John Huston, who matched Nicholson's charisma with her own fire. For a man who had grown up surrounded by secrets and abandonment, Angelica was the rare presence who saw him not as a star, but as Jack.
For another video,
flawed,
if you've enjoyed what you've seen here, please press that like button,
and vulnerable.
If you haven't subscribed,
together
please
they lived a love story that
and I hope
dazzled
to
the
talk to you
public.
again.
Yet behind closed doors, its brilliance was strewn with shadows. Nicholson's career was blazing at its zenith, each role carving him deeper into the pantheon of immortals. But with that came temptation, excess, and a restlessness he could never tame. Angelica endured what many others could not, a partner capable of profound tenderness one moment and betrayal the next. She would later recall watching the devastating cycle of waiting for him to
Which
return,
proves the principle
knowing
of
he might
installing
not.
Linux applications from the same store.
I was often
But you
humiliated,
tried. What
but I
about
loved
Windows applications? What if
Her
you need
words
to run
crystallized
something
the
that's only
paradox.
available for Windows?
A love
And
intoxicating
Zone OS
yet
16
bruising,
is as well
binding
equipped
yet
as
breaking.
any Linux distro to actually
For
do
nearly
this.
17
And to prove
years,
it,
she
let's
stood
just
beside
the
me,
file
hoping
manager.
love might someday outweigh
File manager
chaos.
here, and I've got
But in
sitting in
1990, the
WinApps
final
here.
fracture came. Nicholson fathered a child with model Rebecca Broussard, and for Angelica, the blow was irreparable. It was not merely infidelity. It was the collapse of a life built together.
Location was
Their story, nearly 2 decades in the making, ended in a silence heavier than any argument. Houston herself described that time as shattering, and Nicholson, for all his bravado, could never erase the guilt. In one of his most searing confessions, he admitted, "I lost the best woman of my life, and I never forgave myself." Those words are not the lines of a screen roll, but of a man stripped bare. They reveal that beneath the legend lived a wound no Oscar could soothe, no applause could drown out. Losing Angelica was not just losing a partner, it was losing the one soul who steadied him, the one love that might have softened the turbulence within. Unlike other romances that flared and faded, this one left a scar that pulsed through his later years, a private torment hidden behind the mask of charm. And that is the tragedy. Jack Nicholson knew it. He knew he had let slip away the only woman who had matched his fire with her own. He knew that even as the world crowned him a king of cinema, he was a man who had destroyed his own chance at lasting love. To audiences, he was immortal. To himself, he was haunted. The applause of millions could never silence the absence of Angelica Houston. This was Jack Nicholson's deepest heartbreak, the love story that burned brightest and broke hardest. And though decades have passed, the shadow of that loss has never truly faded. A reminder that even legends can be undone not by their enemies, but by the loss of the love they could not keep. If the end of Jack Nicholson's 17-year love story with Angelica Houston was a thunderclap, then what followed with Rebecca Broussard was the long, aching echo. She was radiant, nearly 3 decades younger than him, a model whose youth and light seemed to promise Nicholson something he had never truly secured: renewal. In the late 1980s, as the storm with Houston crumbled, Rebecca appeared, and with her came what looked like a second chance at the family Jack had lost. In 1990, at the age of 53, Nicholson welcomed a daughter, Lorraine. 2 years later, a son, Ray. For a man who had already stumbled through the pain of absent fatherhood, their arrival was both exhilarating and daunting. A reminder that destiny had offered him another chance to hold close what once slipped through his fingers. And yet, as history had shown, the very fire that made Nicholson extraordinary also made him difficult to contain. Hollywood still swirled around him, the roles, the fame, the temptations. And though Rebecca brought him tenderness and youth, she could not steady a man who lived in constant motion. Their relationship, though passionate, carried fractures from the start, mirroring the same restlessness that had undone his earlier loves. By the mid-1990s, the union quietly dissolved. There was no tabloid war, no public scandal, only the soft ache of a young mother stepping away, and a legend once again finding himself without permanence. For Nicholson, the loss was not only the end of another romance, but the collapse of what could have been his truest redemption. Friends remembered how proudly he spoke of Lorraine and Ray at their events, boasting of their talents, even joking that they were the best production of his life. And yet behind the humor lay a shadow, the absence of a stable home. The knowledge that his children would grow up with love, but without the intact family he once dreamed of creating.
Walking in his head.
The better men and women understand each other, the more they'll accept each other's differences. And that can serve as a very big help in their relationship.
Airport 16J was answered. Airport 16J was answered. Charlie 42 Club, copy, Lincoln Road 024.
I doubt that there will be a subject that will be more difficult to address than this one, explaining male-female differences. And why? Because people live in denial. The denial is one I encountered when I was in college. That's a long time ago, when I was told, and I might add an elite Ivy League university, that there are no differences between men and women, just physical ones. And I knew then there was something wrong at my college, that I am being told something so foolish, that there are no real differences between men and women. It has caused terrible havoc in the lives, especially of women, but certainly of men as well. This major denial of major differences between the sexes. If you want to get along with the opposite sex, you've got to try to understand you, and you've got to try to understand the opposite sex. That's why this is so important, and that's why this is so difficult. So, let's deal with this with the acknowledgement that, of course, men and women have a tremendous amount in common. A good man and a good woman have a lot in common. Goodness. A smart man and a smart woman have a lot in common. And by the way, I don't believe that either sex is innately more intelligent than the other. Not because it's a nice thing to say, but because I've met so many brilliant people of each sex, and by the way, a fair number of dummies of each sex. It seems to be somewhat equal. Men and women have a lot in common. Let's also acknowledge that not every difference applies to every single male and every single female. But as I have often said, if you can't generalize, you are truly a dummy. Generalizing is the way in which we make sense out of life. We generalize all the time. We have to make generalizations, but they have to be intelligent generalizations, and you always have to offer examples to make your point about the generalization, and that's what I will be doing. I admit that there are always exceptions, but if we don't understand the general truths of life, then we cannot make any sense out of life. So let's begin with some innate mental differences. Here is a quote from one study. The inferior parietal lobule, which controls numerical brain function, is larger in males than in females. On standardized tests, men often score higher on mathematical tests than women. I don't see a problem with acknowledging that, but I want to note that this difference exists. Males are more prone to autism, ADHD, and Tourette's syndrome, while women are more susceptible to mood disorders like anxiety and depression. As the list continues, women tend to remember all the details while men usually keep the main point in mind. Virtually everyone who has lived with, been married to a member of the opposite sex, again, virtually everyone knows how true that is. Women remember the details, for example, of a conversation. Men remember the bottom line. God, is that ever true? And it leads to certain miscommunications because sometimes women think that the man wasn't listening. So I have a very helpful thing to say to the wives watching this video. It is not true that your husband does not listen.
No, that's not what I
He doesn't remember. That's really significant. And you do remember. In fact, women's memories are sometimes in marriage a problem, because she will remember something he said 10 years ago or did 10 years ago, and he doesn't remember exactly what was said about yesterday. This is not a flaw. This is just a feature. Men, and I am one of them, I remember the bottom line. I don't remember the details on how we got there.
You did talk to a friend.
Frankly, I forgot to slip my mind.
What? That's right, dude.
All I was doing was trying 1 hour ago.
I was just trying to teach you.
Unless you just need to know all the information.
Men do not take things as personal
For me, it has all the functionality that I need to be stable
as women do. Here's a Harvard report of a study. While men can be aggressive and combative, a new study shows that from the tennis court to the boxing ring, modern equivalents of one-on-one conflict, men are more likely than women to make peace with their competitors after the competition ends. Using videos of 4 sports in 44 countries, the professors found that, quote, men are far more likely to engage in friendly physical contact, handshakes, back pats, and even hugs following competition than women are. Ultimately, Professor Joyce Benenson said, quote, the implications of this study could reach far beyond the boundaries of the playing field. What we're talking about is women having a harder time when they have to compete with other women. Studies have shown that when 2 females compete in the workplace, they feel much more damaged afterward. I think this is something human resources professionals should be aware of so they can mitigate. Pretty much all of you know this. You don't need a Harvard report on this. So I'll give you another example. When men really like each other, they insult each other. Imagine 2 guys, good friends, even good acquaintances, and they're both at a banquet or something, and one guy goes to the other, you know, Jack, you are really ugly. The other guy will probably insult him back. They'll both crack up, and in man speak, they will know they really like each other. It is inconceivable that the closest female friends in the world would make such a rib. Cindy, you really look ugly tonight. That could easily end a 25-year friendship. Men are also much more physically aggressive. I remember being greeted once at the door by two little sons of a friend of mine, and they just jumped all over me, basically attacked me.
This is the way we like it, fast, hard-hitting and clean.
And I thought, gee, two little girls have never done that when I came to the door.
You storm and take a position by sheer physical force.
Men are more physically aggressive, and of course, if it's not held in check, it could do a lot of damage. Women have to hold their natures in check, and men have to do it with their natures. Why, by the way, is all of this important at all? Because the better men and women understand each other, the more they'll accept each other's differences. And that can serve as a very big help in their relationship. That's why it's important to understand the other sex. And let me tell you something, the other sex is correct. In fact, the old term for it is the opposite sex. And in some ways, we are opposite sexes. But that is a very big deal about not taking things personally, and the fact that guys will hug after beating each other up, and women won't.
The application, the app, not sure settings are very bare bones, and you can clearly see
I have a story for you. The former president of Harvard University, Larry Summers, who was a member of the Clinton administration, a lifelong Democrat, a lifelong liberal, told this story while still president of Harvard University. The report is called Harvard President Larry Summers, used as an example
or stuff like that
about the different temperaments of men. One of his daughters,
in terms of appearance,
who was
there's
a
also
child,
some quite
was given
good
two
things that you can
trucks
look at.
in
Obviously,
an
you
effort
got your usual
at
dark mode and light mode, which auto switches fly. You got
largely
by the build-out of which will only appear in a selected elements and highlights around
all that news
driving markets higher today.
I asked Powell
if today's interest rate cut
would help those struggling with housing affordability,
and he acknowledged there is weakness in housing and that today's rate cut is unlikely to be enough to bring relief to the housing market soon. Tom?
Women are more
Christine, thank you. We have a new health warning tonight.
This
Officials
drives
across the country say the spread of nueces is now.
They don't want to believe it, particularly women of the world of higher education, or if you will, feminists. They rejected this idea at the outset. This was all socially induced. Women are not more nurturing. But it's really hard for people to say that, given that women give birth and that women are the mothers of children. If women were not more nurturing, it would be a very bad scene for the human race.
You must never touch those scissors, do you hear? You might put your eye out, baby.
As anyone who has a child with a member of the opposite sex has probably experienced, if the child at night moans, cries,
we watch Julia
it
try
is
to hold
overwhelmingly
everyone
likely
and
that the
everything
mother
together.
will
Let's
hear
take a
this,
look.
and the dad
So many
will continue
responsibilities.
snoozing. Is that not
Pay for all
innate?
this.
Many people
Mum and
believe
Dad's
in
mortgage
evolution.
and your
I'm
mortgage
certainly
when
not
you
here to
can't,
argue
which I know we're not supposed
pro
to
or
talk
con on
about.
evolution. I'm
I
merely
have
here to say that
therapy.
if you are one of the many who
Can't
do
this next crisis.
believe in evolution, you
do
have
it
to
all.
believe that the human race
Joining us
evolved
now is-
for at least one of the sexes to be more nurturing with regard to the offspring than the other. That's the way it works. And one had to be more aggressive, conquer the world, while the one is taking care of the domestic place. I'm merely pointing out what is a physiological fact, a physiological/psychological fact. Women are more nurturing. By the way, it's proved even in the macro, not just in the whole, but in the macro. Women overwhelmingly are more likely to vote for the parties that want to nurture those in society who are, for example, poorer. They vote for the nurturing party, The one that promises more benefits is the one that they will more likely vote for. I'm not taking a position on it. I'm merely describing how women's natures will even be reflected with regard to the nurturing aspect in terms of how they vote.
We all know it takes a long time.
As one psychiatrist, Dr. Stephen Marmer, UCLA Medical School, as he said to me, and I quote him, women are optimized, perfect word, optimized for taking care of a child. I don't see why that is even worthy of denial.
Add stuff to there. In terms of
and now
you have a basic
to the
media
toughest
player,
difference,
which does what you'd expect,
because it's such a sensitive arena and it's one that causes so many problems between the sexes, and that is sex.
The one you also get Gnome's image viewer as well.
And so the good news is that in the last couple of weeks, as you just reported, I have been seeing some Republicans
what
willing to come out and say publicly that this isn't okay, and then they want to see briefings about the strikes that you talked about previously. Of course, this one, which is fairly comprehensible when you think about it. A royal tanker in the middle of the international waters being attacked by the United States military is not something that you hear about every decade, and that's something that we should.
How good looking she was. Hey, you look mighty pretty.
By the way, I have a perfect proof. That is how gay men are also aroused. That's proof this is not socialized. This is not something society does to acculturate men. Oh, you should look at women as sex objects. Gay men look at males as sex objects. By the way, it's not the only way men look at women. It's not the only way gay men look at men. Although with some men, on a very brief hookup, it is. It would be for a heterosexual man on a brief hookup. But obviously, men love many things about women. However, the visual is the immediate, most powerful turn-on in the male. That is not true for the female. Of course, females are turned on by the looks of some men, but it's some men.
Good looking, nothing at all like the trips around school.
This notion, whenever I've raised it on the radio, women will call up, oh, you're telling me I'm not turned on by a good-looking man? I have never said that. I'm not saying that now. I'm just saying it's not comparable. After I gave a talk on this subject, oh, this has to be at least 25 years ago, a guy in sales at my original radio station came over to me one day, and he said, Dennis, you have no idea. The other day I was walking past a department store and I caught myself
Windows 11 later versions of Windows 10, it's possible to run Linux in a lightweight virtual machine using the Windows subsystem for Linux or W.
A mannequin, an inanimate object made out of plastic. Women are not doing that.
All I want you to do, Carol, is explain everything to my wife, and then you go home.
The visual is so overwhelmingly powerful in men that it is just that difficult in women to understand this. That is why men spend thousands of times more money, maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe a million, solely because of the power of the visual. I might add that none of this is a way of giving men a green light to act inappropriately. Oh, I got turned on and I couldn't help myself. It's not an issue. It's a problem. The ease with which men are stimulated by the visual is a problem. But the fact that reality poses a problem is not a reason for a mature person to dismiss the reality.
85-901 Normal Drive. 51 Normal. Delivery dispatch 1153.
Location 10-20.
So visual turns men on. What turns women? Visual is only one of them, and is not usually the biggest. The number of women who are attracted to men who are not particularly good looking is almost equivalent to the number of men who are not particularly good looking.
You don't think there's anything wrong with me?
Oh, forget it. I gotta go now. We'll talk about it some other time.
I'm walking, Doc.
So I'll give you a little list of things that turn women on more than once. No order of importance. Voice.
Create a custom website. It'll write so many tags that we even set you up with a social media calendar.
Personality.
Get started at GoDaddy.com.
Money. Success. Fame. Power. Charm. Sense of humor. Confidence. By the way, a man doesn't need all of them, but some of them definitely are needed to turn a woman on. That's a much more complex list than the visuals. Women are aroused by their minds. Men are aroused by their eyes. Men are also aroused by their eyes. Here's what a woman writer wrote. Good-looking guys are nice to look at, but good looks won't hold our interest for more than a few minutes. Your face and body are side dishes. The main course is how well you're able to engage us, to make us feel like we're at the center of your universe, if only for a short stint, which requires self-awareness and self-confidence. We'll swoon over how you hold yourself, walk, and talk, not how closely you resemble.
You'll get a message asking you to install.
So it takes far more to arouse a woman than just seeing
I actually went back
a
to the
good
software store and did a manual install of Windows apps. And therefore that open when I click here, it will install the edition. Do we want to run patsey? Yes, we do. Let's see what happens. Very exciting.
Where they asked college-aged men to sit alone in a room for hours. No book, no TV, nothing, just sit alone. Same age group of young women. Then they asked them, what did you think about? Generally, the answer among men was sports and sex. Now, the answer of women was what really fascinated me as a man.
Location.
I knew what the men thought. But the women was a revelation to me. The women reviewed conversations. Men don't review conversations as a general rule, just for the record. As I said earlier, they only remember the bottom line, but women remember the details. That's a very big difference. A friend of mine in high school, and I didn't expect this from him because he didn't strike me as a particularly active girl chaser, came over to me one day and said, Dennis, I did some questioning of some of the guys in the class, and I've come to the following conclusion. 1 out of every 10 thoughts a guy has it's not about sex.
Just for it to spend, if you're lucky, minutes booting back up while it does force up.
After the power of the visual and what turns them on as being different is the variety. Men want variety. It is built into men. I'm always amazed at the men who are living with or married to truly gorgeous women, one of the most gorgeous in the world. And then they will have an affair with a woman, sometimes who isn't half as good looking as their wife. Because what is moving them is the variety impulse in men. Men love women. Women love a man. That's a very big difference. By the way, these differences make for a lot of problems between the sexes. There's no doubt about it. But if you're a grown-up, you address life even when it's difficult, even when what you realize causes problems. That's what a grown-up does. Then you deal with it and you control yourself. And you understand the opposite sex better. But to deny it is to be a child and not be willing to be a grown-up facing reality. Men want variety. That is the way we are made. Period. Gay men want variety and straight men want variety. Again, just for the record, this is not to absolve a man from controlling his nature. Men have a lifelong battle with their sexual nature. Good men win that battle. By the way, there are some good men who even lose that battle on occasion, or at least once, and they shouldn't have, and it was wrong. But it doesn't make the man necessarily bad. I mean, if he's a habitual cheater, this is not a good man. So this does not absolve men, but I want every woman watching this to understand, the man in your life, if he's faithful, that's an achievement. It's bigger achievement than in most cases when a woman is faithful. She loves her husband, and they have some degree of a decent, intimate life. It is not a struggle in her life on a regular basis to stay faithful. But no matter how much a man loves his wife, he has to fight his nature. I know you'll never hear this, but it is true, and it is worth knowing. I suggested on my male-female hour on a couple of occasions that if your husband, for example, takes frequent business trips, you might just want to say to him at some point, honey, I know the temptations that are out there, and I just want you to know, I really appreciate it. To save up to 20% off during this holiday season. It's a big deal for a man to know that you appreciate the that he has to go through. American Psychological Association, February 2013. At the same time, a classic study, they called it a classic study, by Clark and Hatfield from 1989, found that men are much more likely than women to accept casual sex offers from people they find attractive. That's exactly right. That's part of the variety issue and the visual stimulation issue. It's built into men. Women are not wired as men are for casual sex. And we have too many proofs of the counter effects that the hookup culture, as it is called, on college campuses, for example, the consequences that are so negative for so many women. Not all. Nothing is all, but for most. So what has happened to women? What is the damage done by women being taught this nonsense that you have a male sexual nature and can find casual sex as enjoyable as men can? This is from the National Institute of Health, July 2013. The relationship between multiple sex partners and anxiety, depression, and substance dependence disorders. The relationship. Australian family physician, December 2017. Psychological distress and risky sexual behaviors among women aged 16 to 25 years in Victoria, Australia. Psychological distress. A woman writing an anonymous column in The Guardian, again from the left, February 2008, expressed the problem this way, quote, as a feminist, I believed that the personal was political and that I had the right to the same sexual freedom as men. In reality, open relationships were a nightmare, painful, seething with repressed jealousy and personally destructive. Women, since I was in college, have been taught that their natures are just like men. Men can enjoy casual sex and a large number of different women, and by golly, why can't you?
is
Well, I'll tell you why.
If you go to the top there, you'll see that the font has been substituted because it's not available. And similarly, this is the Dana, and
sex is
this
just a
is
physical act
Sans,
with just
and these
another male
font
body.
installed by default in
Doesn't
Linux.
do for women.
You can
Physical act
if
with
you close
another
this
female
job,
body.
I can go to compose that as well. For now, we'll go to a terminal, and I'm going to type sudo apt install
and relationships.
mstt core.
Both sexes want to be loved and to love.
And it'll ask for
That's
my
a
password,
given.
which of course I have.
But there is something additional that is different. And this is the way I put it. Men want to be admired by the woman they love. Women want to admire the man they love. That's a difference. It's a subtle difference, but it's a big difference. A man who loves a woman, he wants her to admire her. And she wants to admire the man that she loves. And finally, men have bigger brains, but it doesn't mean smart. But both sexes get stupid. Both do. When they don't think with their mind, but with another organ. In the case of the woman, the heart. In the case of the man, the penis. That can get you in a lot of trouble. Both sexes have a battle with one of their organs. It's never been put that way that I know of. I'm not trying to be original, but I admit it's probably a new thought. One of my courses for the master's program is on the moral obligation to be happy. You should make the decision to be happy, or at least to act happy, even if you're not. We are filled with moral obligations in our lives. You can become a really wonderful human being if you battle your nature. And in the sexual realm, and in the realm of the differences between the two sexes, it's most obvious. We each have our battles, and we should help each other master those battles. When done properly, the differences between men and women are sort of the
Right away, it
proverbial
had to be
jigsaw
the cutting
puzzle.
board. When I got home, I checked
Very
it.
different
It looked
pieces
clean, but deep in the
that fit
grooves, there were bits of
almost
food.
perfectly.
I smelled it. That same raw chicken smell. I always cleaned it well in hot water, soap, bleach. But I found out wood cutting boards absorb juices like a sponge, trapping bacteria like E. coli and salmonella deep inside, where bleach can't even reach. I felt sick. I threw it out on the spot. Thankfully,
broken toes and route 2.
Technical analysis. Alright, next up we're going to go ahead and run the same three models that fit fully into GPU VRAM here. And we're going to exact same commands, everything. Same tokens we get for prompt and for token generation here. Definitely see that the 5060 Ti already picking up a lot in the like 47% range for utilization.
So you should be able to run that on any computer without any problem. So to conclude on Cosmic and Pop OS, I love what they've done. It is a fantastic first draft of a desktop. It is still a first draft. The applications are bare bones. The settings are very bare bones. You can clearly see that some stuff is not animated as it should be. Some stuff isn't as smooth as it should be. There are some performance problems with opening and closing apps. Not sure if it's
Unrecognized man.
add stuff to them. In terms of other apps, you have a basic media player, which does what you expect, and then it's just applications
Here we are back on the desktop with the Welcome Wizard. There's various things that can be done here, some of which I'll return to later in the video, but the critical one is that if you have an NVIDIA graphics card on this computer, like this, an NVIDIA graphics card, you need to launch the driver manager to install the right drivers for the NVIDIA graphics card. And just to be clear, if you have Intel or AMD graphics, the best part is already been installed. But here for NVIDIA, we'll just
It'll make you it'll create a custom website. It'll write social posts for you and even set you up with a social media calendar. Get started at GoDaddy.com/area. That's GoDaddy.com/AI.
Airport 16 David Lampard.
David Lampard 1838.
Airport 16 David Lampard.
David Lampard 1838.
Airport 16 David Lampard.
Silence trimming complete.
460 David Lampard.
Reboot. And once again, we're arriving in the next week. This time in full.
6th of February next year. 6 will have a new base until next year. 6 will have a new base until next year. 6 will have a new base until next year. 6 will have a new base until next year. 6 will have a new base until next year. You'll have a new base until next year. So this will no longer be a problem. Add stuff to there. In terms of other apps, you have a basic media player, which does what you'd expect, and then it's just applications grabbed from other desktops. In PopOS, you get LibreOffice, you get the document viewer, which is the one from GNOME. You also get GNOME's image viewer as well. They install Thunderbird for email. You also get a bunch of various little preferences for managing printers, for iBus, for the disk usage. Just all of that stuff that they don't have.
Mint, this time installed on the computer. So I'll just log in. And here we are back on my desktop with a welcome wizard. And there's various things that can be done here, some of which I'll return to later in the video. But the critical one is that if you have your video graphics card, we need to launch the driver manager.
Even if someone is not you can understand Kubuntu quickly. The layout resembles Windows enough to feel familiar, while still offering the power of Linux underneath. Right-click menus, taskbar behavior, window controls, and system tray icons behave just as most users expect. This reduces the learning curve and makes Kubuntu a friendly introduction to Linux. For users switching from Mac OS, Kubuntu offers features like global menus, hot corners, and dock-like panels.
Jeremy Farina. He's got some stuff that's coming over here from HR, or HR from them. So, for illustration purposes today, I've shown one person else. I understand. I'm just trying to look at what medium income you're looking at specifically.
Editing and preparation complete.
Area with no different water security. I can't speak English. It's okay. I have
Alright, therefore I'm moving to Old Plaza Road. Yeah, just stay on the side of Old Brownsville Road or pull the water burger just so you can pull off in either direction.
I want to go and serve it.
Hi, I just took the 932 stuff out of here. Also, that's all I got for you.
Yeah, and then 915, I got that one going. I had an entry block.
Database sorting. The entire audio workflow is finished.
Hello?
Yes, I will have to check, please.
I'm saying. $642. I'll be 23 at the jail.
642, sir.
You've got an individual that's requesting that. Yeah, man. 10-12, you open mic. You ready that 38 heading that way? 305. I'm getting them right now. It's
05, go ahead.
40 Live Oak, Airport to Shoreline. 404, about 30 minutes, 615.
Charlie 482 copy, Paul Lincoln, 0284. 28, or back at Park House. Just 10-4. I'm now staying over next. City County.
Okay, Charles, 150. 129, going to be Pleasant.
DRC 24 red, refusal will be around the year 24/7 for both.
10-4 for everyone on there.
10-4.
76. Hold on. Yes, 1105. Access 4500. Covered again. Apartment 2, B-boy, 2, B.
Right. I just because the 932 was the stuck dollar bill. Also, that's the one that that's why I got confused.
915, I got that one going. I had an entry block.
Okay, but you did take 932 off, right?
Coming out to 932.
Up 3100.
420, clear George, show David. Airport. Clear George, showing David.
You found it. It looks like the right one. This is upgrade.
Are you okay to wait for the yard?
I did put it on and get it stuck.
Good.
And then, well, I might pull the truck out. Right, or just get something to the vehicles around. I want to take the over the dumpster truck. So maybe I'll
I guess so.
brace her throwing up here the truck behind me.
And truck 4, Medic 14 and truck 4, ready for breathing problems at the Woolwich Place Nursing Center.
Hello.
401, easy of 1431, work off, EMS 1, 2220.
Yo 1.
Yo 1.
David?
Hello.
Charlie, do you guys have a power line?
Airport 60, David.
David, last time 1838.
Radio Bob Howard.
Waverly Wildcats.
Okay, so let's close.
Details, Anderson. Details, for who's the original?
My
most of all, it shows that whenever this industry is confronted with something that feels impossible,
in. And here we are back on my desktop with a welcome wizard, and there's various things that can be done here, which I will demonstrate later in the video. But the is that if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, and on this computer there is an NVIDIA graphics card, we need to launch the driver manager to install the drivers for the NVIDIA graphics card. And just to be clear, if you have Intel or AMD graphics, those drivers will already be installed. That's it.
And PopOS. I know what they've done. First draft of a desktop. It is still a first draft. The applications are bare bones, the settings are very bare bones, and you can clearly see that some stuff is not animated as it should be, some stuff isn't as smooth as it should be. There are some performance problems when opening and closing apps. Not sure
System will now reboot. And once again, we're arriving in Linux Mint, this time installed on the computer. So I'll just log in, and here we are back on my desktop with a welcome wizard, and there's various things that can be done here, some of which I'll return to later in this video now, but the critical one is that once again, video graphics card, this time on the computer settings now video graphics card. I'll just launch the once again, we're arriving in the right time, here we are back with my desktop with a welcome wizard, so, and just there's various things that can be done here, some of which I'll reveal later on my desktop video, but the critical one, there's various things that can be done here, some of which I'll return to later computer video, but the
let's start off with McIntyre. Look off of McIntyre. Make contact with Cruz. She's in a gray Telluride SUV. Wants to report family member missing. Well, also, can you tell me, is this the regular bus port? So it was on yesterday, but someone else. Right. Address is 8050 Marseille. That's 8050 Marseille. And it's signaling outside.